what is your purpose and passion that brought you to not only business ownership, but specifically in this industry?
I think I will kind of go to the beginning because I just think it's such a big piece of what I do now that I have to share that I walked that before. And so many years ago, I graduated with my master's degree. I was so excited. I was eager. I was going to conquer the world being a mental health therapist. And I landed my dream job, air quotes, and working for a private group practice. At that time, I was really struggling with postpartum depression and anxiety. I'm a mama of two. I was wrecked by one, having postpartum depression and anxiety, but two, being a mental health therapist and not being able to just fix it. That it was such an interesting situation that I was totally blindsided by. My personal story, my burnout, my depression, like I had to get to the root cause of that. No job or vacation was going to solve those problems for me, right? Those concerns.
Hello, welcome everybody to Vision Untethered. My name is Jill Simons. I am the founder and CEO of Savvy Strategic Partners, a full-service fractional C-suite executing vision, increasing business value, and helping founder owners realize freedom. In Vision Untethered, we uncover conversations with inspirational visionary leaders delving into the true meaning of being untethered. Too often, business owners find themselves tethered to and held back by their businesses. The business, as a result, is also essentially held back and tethered. It can't operate independently of the founder. It stifles innovation, expansion, and long-term value growth and sustainability. We'll authentically unpack some of the business mistakes and strategies to overcome them and identify saboteurs that often keep many of us tied down. Today, I am joined by Becky Lauridsen, a licensed professional counselor who founded IOMI to build and provide guilt-free self-care and offering quality mental wellness services, partnering with local businesses for discounted self-care options. Through its innovative mental wellness program, IOMI delivers on-site and virtual services to workplaces, promoting mental health awareness and reducing stigma. She believes that, similar to our physical health, we can take a preventative approach to our mental health too. Remember, you deserve the best because your loved ones deserve the best of you, not what's left of you. Becky, thank you so much for being here and joining me today. I'm so excited to dive in
As am
with you.
I. Yes, thank you
Yeah.
so much. I'm so excited about this podcast and your purpose. It's so great to spend time with you anyways.
Aw, likewise. Likewise. It's always fun. I'm sure we will dive into Enneagram. I know that's like one of our favorite topic areas, so I will not forget that. That in itself could probably be its own podcast.
I believe it.
But we'll reserve that maybe for next time. First and foremost, what is your purpose and passion that brought you to not only business ownership, but specifically in this industry?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. And I think I will kind of go to the beginning because I just think it's such a big piece of what I do now that I have to share, that I walked that before. And so many years ago, I graduated with my master's degree. I was so excited. I was eager. I was going to conquer the world being a mental health therapist. And I landed my dream job, air quotes, and working for a private group practice. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and seeing so many clients back to back. I was the yes girl. I had no boundaries. I wasn't addressing my own mental health. I was taking my work stress home, my home stress to work. And long story short, I ran into significant burnout. At that time, I was really struggling with postpartum depression and anxiety. I'm a mama of two,
Oh,
and I
yeah.
had my first daughter then, and I was wrecked by one, having postpartum depression and anxiety, but two, being a mental health therapist and not being able to just fix it. That it
Yeah.
was such an interesting situation that I was totally blindsided by. And
Yeah.
so I I was very much pointing my finger at all these other things and saying that it's my boss, it's the job, it's the industry of mental health, it's my
Mm-hmm.
husband, my home, my family, in-laws. I mean, I was just pointing, it was everything except for me. So at that time, I wasn't even thinking about my, extensive student loans or the mortgage I had to pay or anything. I just quit. I up and left, and I even let my license license expire because I just was so that it was the industry's fault. It was everything else. And at that time, I realized real quickly that it wasn't that it
Yeah.
wasn't the quick fix that I was looking for. And so that's when I
Mm.
really started to dive into my own mental health therapy. I did EMDR to really help overcome my depression and anxiety that I was dealing with. And I just went on this really beautiful self-care journey and mental health journey. And that's really what led me down this road of, dang it, I still believe in mental health. Dang it, I still believe in this self-care, but why can't we be more preventative? Why can't we
Mm.
have this early intervention? Because if I would have had early intervention at the beginning signs of burnout and postpartum depression, anxiety, or even before I gave birth, I could have prevented a lot of heartache for my family and myself. And so really, like in a long story short, in a roundabout way, that's what landed me with this idea of, I don't want to be just a regular mental health facility, just a private practice clinician. I wanted to do something different. And a good mentor of mine said, well, what's stopping you? And I was like, oh, okay, good question. So I guess nobody else is doing it this way. I guess I'm going to have to do it myself. So I
Yep.
founded the company on that. And that was about 6 years ago that I was
Yeah.
ignited and lit up about this idea of creating guilt-free self-care and starting with our mental health and truly trying to be more preventative and proactive. Of course, it's never too late. I always have to caveat that, but being able to make more of a focus on preventative mental health and wellness. And that's my purpose. That's my passion.
Usually it stems from
Hmm.
a significant burden or experience or trauma in our own lives of
Yeah.
something that needs to exist and a problem to
Yep.
be solved
Absolutely.
that we
Yeah.
went through personally, right? To spur us in that direction.
Yeah.
I love that's the whole guilt-free piece of it is brilliant right there,
Thank you.
because it's one thing to say to be preventative, but
Mhm.
you've even gone a step deeper, especially for women, right?
Yeah.
A step deeper into the root of why women don't take care of ourselves.
Hmm.
Like, to me, I mean, it's still like as many times as I can reiterate and encourage myself when I'm taking time to myself, when I'm doing something that I really want to do. And I know there's this misconception that self-care is
Yeah.
about getting our nails done and getting a massage and taking a
Yeah.
bubble bath. And it's not just that. But I realized probably 2 years ago, on the same route and journey as you,
Mm.
without any understanding and background expertise in therapy, that I was inhibiting those things in my life because I felt guilty when I was doing them. And it kind of starts with like, I'm gonna go get a massage and I'm gonna go, just to start to channel this understanding and awareness of what does fuel us. So the guilt-free piece, that is at the root, I think, and solves for the reason women don't take care of themselves. And
Right.
it goes as far too as like seeking the therapy and the healing
Yeah.
that we need
Absolutely.
in our lives to be free, or to talk to someone,
Yeah.
right? To even ask for help. Can you speak a little to that too, and
Yeah.
like the
And
impact IOMI, yeah, has had on that specifically, and how you really teach to and guide,
well, I think you
your
you really spoke to it a second ago of like what is self-care anyways? What is this concept of guilt-free? Most people
yeah.
are like, that's that's a great idea, but not practical at all, right? Especially us working moms. And I want to make sure that we recognize what the definition is, because yes, it can be the bubble bath, the glass of wine, the beach vacations, etc. But it's those can tend to be the band-aids, right? We really have to get to
Mm,
the root cause of these situations. My personal story, my burnout, my depression, like I had to get to the root cause of that. No job or vacation was going to solve those problems for me, right? Those concerns. And so,
mm,
by definition, it's self-care is the act of taking the practice of taking an active role in protecting your own well-being and happiness. And I just
mm,
love that definition because it's not always the quick fix or the self-indulgence. I'm looking at my phone, right? It's not just the
mm-hmm.
self-indulgence is it's characterized by doing exactly what one wants, right? So I've had a
Yeah.
long day. It's been so busy. I'm just going to check out and scroll my social media, my Instagram reels. I'm telling on myself, these are all things I do.
Yep.
Right? Scroll my Instagram
Yep.
reels for hours because I deserve it. I'm going to drink the whole bottle of wine instead of just a glass of wine because it's just been a day. today. I'm going to indulge in a whole bag of chips. Chips are my vice.
Yeah.
Instead of just a serving or whatever it is, I'm going to hit snooze
Hmm.
on my alarm over and over because I'm so tired and I deserve it, right? So we know that in those moments it'll feel good and we can even excuse it as self-care, but it's going to leave us, it's the Band-Aid effect, right? It's just covering up. It's going to leave us feeling like I've got a headache from looking at my phone for too long. It's not going to
Yeah.
fuel the bigger picture purpose. And
Yeah.
then self-care, that practice of taking an active role, right, to protect our own well-being and happiness. It's the things that are a little more uncomfortable, a little bit more challenging, the waking up 20, 30 minutes earlier before the kids get up or before the hustle and bustle to have quiet time, the I'm going to shut my phone off, or the saying no, going to therapy, as you mentioned.
Hmm.
Those things are going to be a little bit more uncomfortable, but those are the
Yeah.
things that are going to get to the root cause that are going to truly add long-term benefit. Now, this
Yeah.
is probably the most important piece of this because I don't want anybody to feel shame around it, that I give everybody permission to self-indulge. In fact, I even encourage some of my clients to indulge as
Hmm.
long as our quality self-care is outweighing the indulgence, right? So
Hmm.
as long as I'm doing several things to fuel my overall wellness, my mental health,
Yeah.
my physical health, then sure, yeah, I can have a day of just binging Netflix because I do need to just check out, right? So it's
Yeah.
okay as long as our self-care is outweighing that.
Yeah.
And
It
I
can't be
think
in place of. Those
it
indulgences are not
cannot.
the self-care.
Yep,
Yeah.
exactly. And to
Mm.
speak to the therapy piece, that's just, I mean, time and time again, our clients come in, especially women, moms in particular, but really
Yeah.
truly anybody. And it's such a barrier. And that's definitely one of my biggest soapboxes, is to be able to help support them because
Yeah.
they will be a better everything once they do start to experience the true self-care.
Exactly. It's success in anything.
Hmm.
I say this so many times with teams, right? Business owners, the
Yeah.
entire team, is that success requires the discipline
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
freedom. Like our freedom, you to be free from the stress, the anxiety that comes with all that, is going on and that you're dealing with, requires you to have structure, requires
Mhm.
you to have the discipline to not scroll your phone
Hmm.
for three
Yeah,
hours to check out,
absolutely.
to not
Yep.
eat the whole bag of chips, to not,
Yep.
right? That takes so much strength and discipline.
Mhm.
So, how you work with teams, right? Working at
Mhm.
a, direct with employers
Mhm.
here in beautiful northern Colorado. How do the programs, and what programs would you speak to in terms of the benefits at the team health level when they show up to work? What services and what all you provide in order to guide in that understanding and that differentiation between, like, you're taking care of yourself versus, like, we're really setting in the disciplines and coaching and guiding through what needs
Yeah.
to happen internally to be able to use those indulgences
Yeah.
healthily and
Yeah.
productively.
Yeah,
Are there programs
absolutely.
and things that you all
Yeah,
use
we
put out there?
love, oh my goodness, this is my favorite thing I stumbled upon is our
Yeah.
mental wellness in the workplace program because again, we wanted to take a preventative approach, a proactive approach, and this
Mm-hmm.
is exactly doing that because we're able to go to the employee, to the employer, the team, the leadership, whoever it is, and be able to talk to them on a personal level from an outsider, right? I'm not the business owner, I'm not the manager, I'm not their supervisor. I am a therapist that's coming in to be able to
Mm,
support that individual first and foremost. So the
yeah.
fact that we're able to be licensed counselors, mental health providers coming in from the outside, looking in and being able to say, tell me about your day, like tell me how you are really doing, right?
Yeah.
Because I guarantee, and I know this for a fact, that no matter how disciplined the person is, personal life affects work life, vice versa. It's all intermixed. Even the most
Hmm.
compartmentalized person is still going to have things that bleed into each other.
Yeah.
And so we developed a program, our mental wellness in the workplace program, that specifically addresses the concerns of the employees. Like if they're high stress and chaos, right? If it's Weld County's DHS program and they're dealing with some really vicarious trauma and some really
Hmm.
sad things, of course that's going to be affecting their mental health, right? right? So
Mm-hmm.
we're going in there and helping to support them and recognizing this story is triggering their past, and this story is causing a lot of anticipatory anxiety for them, and knowing how much that affects their performance at work, but more
Yeah.
importantly, in my opinion, their performance at home, right?
Mm,
So we're able to take this non-biased, confidential way to come in and say, how are you really doing? And really educate them on mental health in general. The self-care, right? That's again, my
yeah.
soapbox that I always start with anybody of like, what are your warning signs? How do you know that you are on the verge of burnout or high
Mm,
stress, depression, anxiety, et cetera? So we're just
okay.
coming in and identifying them and giving them tools. And the best part is we hold them accountable to the follow through. So it's not just a one and done. We're coming in, we're
Yeah.
talking about all the things they should be doing,
Yeah.
but we're there next week. And hey, Sue, did you follow up with that? Did you set some boundaries?
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now they've got their homework. Now they have their work to
Hmm.
do. They're
Hmm.
held accountable.
Yeah.
Without that though, I mean that's just it, right? Accountability
Yeah.
in every facet of our life is required, and going it alone is where we run into trouble. So whether that's
Exactly.
in business, whether that's in our physical health, our mental health, our family
Hmm.
dynamics, right?
Yep.
We're
Yep.
all accountable.
Yep.
And that's why so many of us fail at a physical regimen, a
Sure.
mental regimen, is because it's like, oh, I don't need a therapist though.
Hmm.
Like I can just indulge
Work
in
my
these
way through it.
things
Hmm.
and power my way through. And yeah, I've noticed for myself personally in those ebbs and flows of therapy and not having that accountability, but then also, realizing you have to come in with the mindset that therapy is not this like magic bullet, easy
Right.
fix. It's going to be
Yeah.
hard. It's going to be
Absolutely.
it's going to get really difficult before anything gets better or easier. And that's the case with really anything in our life when we do hard things, and we have to have that
Absolutely.
discipline.
Well, and our
So,
brains are so habitual. They are so patterned, which it is a beautiful
mhm.
thing for a lot of reasons, right? That the
Yeah.
brain is going to hold on to our past traumas or physical and emotional or even perceived traumas. It doesn't know the difference. It sends the same
Mhm.
neural pathways. It fires the same neurons no matter what. And
Right.
so it locks down on this information. It's like, oh, this is what's normal. I'm going to stay stuck in this self-indulgence path, or I'm going to stay stuck in the depression, whatever it is. And the brain's going
Yeah.
to hold on to that like white knuckle tight hold on because that's what's
Yeah.
normal. And quite honestly, that's what's comfortable. Very much air quotes on that because it's not comfortable, but that's what's comfortable to the brain. And then we have to
Mhm.
have consistency and we have to interrupt that pattern and we have to prove to the brain that you're okay. It's safe. We can move into rest and digest. We don't have to stay into this fight, flight, or freeze response. We can move into
Yeah.
it. And accountability is sure as heck going to be helpful
Yeah.
in that process because the brain's going to be firing all these like, this is
Yeah.
uncomfortable. Wait, what? I'm supposed to like say no and set boundaries and have positive self-belief? Like,
Yeah.
that's weird. And so it's going to
Yeah.
be so
It's easy to bow
new.
out when
Mhm.
we don't have that
Yes, yes,
accountability and somebody showing up then
yeah.
to help guide us through
Mhm.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Super fascinating.
And yeah, and amazing that service is available here to other businesses. And I think it's lacking,
Yeah.
and organizations have the ability to make an impact on our people, to serve the
Mhm.
people,
Yeah.
as opposed to the other way around in such profound, honestly, life saving ways. And
Yeah.
so to be able to have that and as a resource, there's just so many organizations that need that. And
Yeah.
it's huge.
And it is. It's such a beautiful gift. And of course, as the
Hmm.
employer goes, I mean, there's a 4-to-1 return on investment in it. I mean, there's proof in this that when we pour into our employees' mental health and wellness, they
Yeah,
will be more productive. They will have more long-term longevity in the company. I mean, there's such concrete evidence of this too. It's not just the feel-good
absolutely.
evidence. It's
Yeah,
such a win-win for everybody, truly. It's a
yeah,
win-win-win. It's a win for the
yeah.
client, the
It's
employees,
seen
etc.
often as this cliche, yeah, kind of the soft
Yep.
cliches of
Yep.
like, oh, take care of your people and empower your people. But
Mhm.
truly,
Yes.
yeah, when they know,
Hmm.
when I know someone cares about me as a whole person and is providing this gift of better knowing myself, healing, taking true care of like my mental being at
Mhm.
work and where I show up the majority of our week, right? Of just like showing up the best we possibly can,
Yeah.
then that empowerment and that motivation
Yeah.
and really just that intrinsic motivation shifts when people know they're cared about. And that's evident in
Absolutely.
something where you're giving a gift like that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's
So cool.
beautiful what you do.
Hmm. Thank
In
you.
your experience, how can business owners create systems, processes that allow, we talked a little bit about discipline, right? So kind of
Yeah.
shifting to
Hmm.
businesses specifically, and as a business owner, how can business owners create the processes, systems that allow the business to operate independently of constant oversight?
I love that question too. And I love being able to come in and talk to businesses about how to create a burnout-free culture, right? How to
Mm,
create a mental wellness in the workplace culture. Like what a cool
yes.
concept that is. And it is 100% prevalent these days, especially post-COVID. My goodness, is it so needed.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's several different things that can happen. I'm actually going to pull up a list as we're chatting here, but the
Mm-hmm.
biggest thing is to have open conversation. I mean, that really is where it stems from, is to be able to be willing to talk about the uncomfortable things, right? Because
Yeah.
there are mental health is a little uncomfy. It's a little bit unknown. It's not like the most it's just a little tricky, right?
Yeah.
So we want to be able to create just a space where our employees can have conversations, being able to say, hey, how are you feeling stressed? Are you feeling burnt out? Because I think so often the biggest stigma that we have with mental health is if we name it, it's going to plant a seed. No, I promise you, if somebody's already burnt out, by you asking if they're burnt out is not going to make them feel burnt out. They are very much burnt out already. Does that make sense? Like, I
Yeah.
think that's the
Yeah.
those things.
It's like, oh, we
Um,
can't talk about these things because then you're gonna have this realization
yeah.
suddenly that you're on the edge of a cliff right now.
Yep, yep, yep. So we're just going to pretend it's not there and never mention it and
Mm-hmm.
ignore, ignore, ignore.
Yeah,
Not healthy. Okay. So we
exactly.
want to be able to have conversation 100%.
Yeah.
Another really big thing is we have this idea of work-life balance, and I call
Mm-hmm.
BS because balance by definition is an equal distribution of parts, 50-50. No, I'm
Mm-hmm.
sorry, but that's not, some days it's
Mm-hmm.
definitely 70-30, and my work is taking 70. My family, unfortunately, is getting
Yeah.
30 that week. And the next week it's opposite. And sometimes it's 90-10. I mean, as it should be. So I think about this
Mm-hmm.
idea of work-life harmony, and that's going to be the pleasing arrangement of parts, right? I want to be able
Yeah.
to lean on and to be able to blend the two well. And I that
Yeah.
100% is still boundaries, and I still have my phone shut off. I'm not answering emails and when I'm with my family, etc. But I'm going to be able to flow a little bit more easily. I think that's really important for employers to have realistic expectations on this, because
Yeah.
if you don't honor your employees' personal lives and their needs, there won't be longevity, and turnover, as we know, is very costly. So
Yeah.
that's a big one.
Yeah.
My other soapbox would be, as far as this topic goes, is self-awareness, right? And anything that we can do, it's the emotional intelligence. And if we
Yes.
can have this self-awareness, self-management, and then social awareness, social management, that's going to be pretty key. So again, being able to learn about, it starts with ourselves. What are your
Mm-hmm.
triggers? Employer, how do you know that you're leaning towards burnout? Because it's
Yeah.
real. How do you know you're stressed out, et cetera? Like, what do you know? And then when can you intervene? And when to not respond to employees, because you know you're being triggered by other things going on, right? So
Mm-hmm.
self-awareness is going to be really pivotal there. And then I would say, I would probably say the last example is to lead by example, to practice what you preach, right? If
Yeah.
you offer a lunch break, and I see this a lot, if there's supposed to be a lunch break, take your lunch break, right? Take it for yourself, so that way when you're telling your
Mm-hmm.
employees, like, oh yeah, make sure you're stressed. Don't worry, just make sure that you're taking your lunch break. Or responding to emails in the middle of the night. I get it. Sometimes I do too. It sometimes that
Mm,
happens, but really
yeah,
just honoring what that looks like, setting those boundaries, naming that, hey, you know what? I'm not
definitely.
very good at this, actually, this Enneagram, right? Like this is definitely some of my weaknesses here. And so I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to delegate those pieces and I'm going to lean into my strengths and being able to have that
Yeah,
and leading with that.
perfect.
What a gift, right? Because then your employees will be able to follow suit.
Yep. So
Yeah.
you started into a segue into my next question, bringing up
Yeah.
self-awareness
Uh-huh.
and the Enneagram. But before we go there, one thing when you pointed out this replying to email and messaging off hours, because just the accessibility that we have in business now with
Yeah.
messaging tools, mobile,
Sure.
right? I've instilled just this is just kind of helpful tip to
Hmm.
business anyone in your teams and communication is to schedule your messages. There may be an off moment where I'm up late at night. I'm sitting on the side of a soccer field for my daughter's practice to be done, and I have a few moments to myself that I'm going to utilize to make sure I caught up on everything or whatever it might be. I'm scheduling something
Hmm.
for tomorrow. I'm making the intention before I click send on anything to Slack allows this, Teams allows this,
Yeah.
Gmail, any
Hmm.
email system now. Just
Hmm.
look up the feature to schedule your message instead. So,
Hmm.
that small tip for me is something that I instill in modeling that example because I don't want anyone else to feel pressured by the fact that I happened to actually send that email last night at 9:30, but nobody received that email at 9:30. They're going to receive it in their normal working hours. I'm protecting their boundary,
Hmm.
and by trying to model my own.
Yeah.
So I've
I love that.
I've yeah, I would highly suggest that for
Mm.
anybody, just to be
Great
cognizant of that.
reminder.
When you're replying and when you're online, people notice, right?
Yep.
And the team
Mhm.
notices, and so how we're setting that example and that boundary for them is huge.
So good. So
So then going into the self-awareness, and this can tie in our Enneagram because I know
yeah.
you and I are huge fans. You are an expert and certified in Enneagram coaching. You already discussed the importance of self-awareness, but can you talk a little bit to the understanding of Enneagram?
Yeah.
I'm sure many people listening don't know what the Enneagram is, and so we won't
Sure.
go into all of that detail.
Right. Another
Search
day.
Enneagram. Yeah,
Yep.
ENNEAGRAM. Enneagram. I've been a huge follower and fan for over a decade, but how do you incorporate that into the self-awareness piece as just
Mhm.
one tool in how we can know and better understand ourselves and the impact that that's made bringing Enneagram to the organizations that you work with?
Yeah, and it's like, how do we summarize this? It's so prevalent, it's so important. And honestly, I'm not even super biased to just the Enneagram.
Sure.
I would say any personality assessments out there. I think the
Yeah.
Enneagram does a very beautiful job. It's a little more robust than like the disc, which is four. There's much more than just four different types of people out there. So I do love the diversity that it offers.
Hmm.
And obviously the depth that it offers, as you and
Yeah.
I know. So in the Enneagram, there's the nine different types, but then you can wing different ways. It sounds all probably a little overwhelming unless you do know about the
Except
Enneagram.
for us super fans, we're like, yeah, we know.
Exactly. Yes, because then there's the social type, et cetera, right?
Hmm.
But what I would say, and I'm going to disclose just my own personal journey with the Enneagram, and
Yeah.
the biggest relief that I got from it was validation, and it validated the why I was responding to certain things the way I was responding to them, right?
Right.
And it gave me permission to be able to shine a light on it because that is name it to tame it, right? It is so imperative that we shine
Hmm.
lights, and that we start to bring things to the known and bring them up so that way we know how to work through them. And so for
Right.
me, being an Enneagram 3 wing 2, it was very aware when I started to read about the blind spots because
Yeah.
I was in very much denial that I thought I was a type 2. And people would laugh out loud that didn't know, and they're like, "Oh, you were the biggest 3 I know." And I'm like, "Okay, fine, I'll receive that." But it really
Yeah.
came down to the blind spot because my stress response to my husband is so different than my stress response to my employees or to my like outside people, right? That I'm not super close with. And so that was
Yeah.
such a huge validation and recognition for me to move forward and grow. And to be able to know too, and this is something I do with my leadership team internally in IOMI, is to recognize what our needs are, right? If our core desire as a three
Yeah.
is to be seen and to be appreciated, a three wing two specifically, that's really important to me. And so now my program supervisor, my leadership team is able to be like, oh, Becky really does appreciate this. Like we need to make sure that we do say thank you, that we do go this extra mile. And for
Mm.
my one of my leaders to be a type 6 on the Enneagram, you know what? I send a lot of emojis when I am texting her and saying,
Yeah.
hey, we need to chat. Do you have time
Yeah.
for a
She's
call?
not
Lots of
freaking
smiley
out.
faces.
Yep.
Exactly. And it was such a
Hmm.
gift for her and for me to just know how we work together. So we use
Yes.
it internally too for those for our leadership team in
Yeah.
particular, but
Yeah.
then for the other staff as well, because it's easy to look at a type 9 and see how reserved they are and maybe quiet, or they're just going
Hmm.
to work through things at a slower pace than others and whatnot.
Hmm.
And it could be easy to point fingers and be like, oh, I don't think they're happy, or they're not engaged, or maybe something's wrong, or we can just get to, I don't know, hyper focus.
Assumptions. Yeah, we're just making
Assumptions.
assumptions
Exactly.
with
Exactly.
one perspective, but when we can
Yes.
truly see the depth behind who they are, what
Mhm.
motives,
Mhm.
that internal rooted
Yep.
motive within each one of us
Yeah.
that causes us to act, it's,
Hmm.
heart center, thinking center,
Hmm.
doing center, when we can understand how
Yeah.
they work, like, oh, they're, this repressed function of
Hmm.
them is, putting these other two functions in overdrive. And so maybe they're responding to this because of a
Right.
certain reason,
Yeah.
because of a specific motive. And when we understand that,
Hmm.
we can operate and be who we
Such a
truly are. I don't
hmm
know of many teams. So Enneagram, as long as I've known it and how deeply I know it, I'm surprised that it's not used
right.
more
More.
throughout the professional setting. I do know of some businesses that have, they've incorporated everything. And so
Sure.
if you were to recommend, because like you said, there's so much out there. I mean, there's predictive index,
Hmm.
culture index, there's Enneagram, DISC, Colby, six working
Myers-Briggs. Yeah.
genius, Myers-Briggs. I know all of those, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Clifton strengths. I'm like, I've
Yes.
done them all.
Yeah.
I've done them
Yeah.
all. I love them all. I love
Yeah.
all of it. Like, I'm just like, there's some of us that I think just, feed off of and thrive. And those like, oh yeah, tell me more about myself.
Mhm.
Tell me
Yes.
more about like what's wrong with me.
Absolutely.
Um, so it is such a beautiful tool that I think it extends. What I love about it is that it's so easy to pinpoint
Mhm.
um, across all facets of our life. Like
Yeah.
I feel like my husband and I know our numbers, and I know the numbers of my friends and several of our family members. So
Yeah.
from a personal standpoint, and then
Mhm.
I do approach the professional world with teams that I work with,
Mhm.
CEOs, visionaries that I work with,
Mhm.
that are all generally kind of within the same
Yeah.
numbers, right?
Yeah.
But you
Yeah.
can, including yourself,
Yeah.
but you can pinpoint those
Mhm.
and spot them in a way that's like, it's just, yeah, it's a beautiful tool. So
It is.
out of all the assessments and
Yeah.
everything, though, what would you say about Enneagram specifically compared to the other assessments, maybe, and especially in kind of the corporate environments, the
Yeah.
professional environments, and organizations that you're working with, and the importance of maybe just sticking with one or the other? Why that one, and becoming certified specifically in Enneagram, was important to you
Yeah.
and IOMI?
No, that's a great question. I think it comes down to it's the motivations, it's the why we do things. It's not how we do things, it's not
Yeah,
what we're doing, it's not any of the external stuff, it's the internal stuff. So I do love that the most about the Enneagram because it does,
yeah,
like I said, have such depth, but it's really going over those core motivations, right? What is the
Mm-hmm.
core fear that we are running from every day as a type three, right? Is to be unseen, is to be unknown, is to not have success. And that's something that
Mm-hmm.
is scary. And it is something that because of how I'm wired, I have to be
Mm-hmm.
mindful of that. If I say no to an opportunity in my business because I don't have the bandwidth, it's okay. It's okay. It's not, I won't disappear, right? And so we have to recognize those core motivations, the core longing, core
Mm-hmm.
desire, core fear. I think that's just imperative to be able to have. And that's knowing it is going to help us, like you said beautifully, not assume, but then also takes it a step further to not take things personally, right? If
Mm-hmm.
our boss
Yeah.
is a type 8, which is a challenger, which is a doer, which is a like go, go,
Mm-hmm.
go, pretty intense. A
Yeah.
type 6, a type 9, a lot of people can be pretty reactive to that, not knowing their motivation behind it, because the type
Mm-hmm.
8 is like motivated to protect you, to love you, to make sure that they're plowing a path for you to be able to go with them, right? It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
feel like that unless you know more, right? And so it
Yeah.
could be really easy to assume wrongfully and to take it personally, be like, oh, they're just mad at me, right? Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
And assume the worst, right? With type sixes and worst case scenarioing for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And for my team
Exactly.
to know that like I am more of the visionary, of course, as a type 3. I'm the go, go, go. And for them
Mm-hmm.
to know that just because I have big ideas and excitement, I'm not expecting them to implement them and put it
Yeah.
all on them, right? So again,
Yeah.
it's the awareness and the acceptance to be able to walk more
Yeah.
authentically, yeah, and to be
Exactly.
yourself. And it's the
Love
right
that.
right person in the right seat, right? So then if you know that you have an achiever on your team, great. Put them in high achieving situations, right? Don't put them behind
Mm-hmm.
the desk and doing data research and analysis. Oof, right? So being
Mm-hmm.
able to know that and honor where they're at, because once they're able to walk in their strengths, and their core desires and longing, they will be more comfortable. They'll be more happy. And that's going to equate to longer term employment and more
Yeah.
productivity, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Well
So hopefully
put,
that
for
answered that.
sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
Such cool.
Just the beauty and the power in that tool
Yeah.
specifically,
Yeah.
that I think a lot of the tools don't
Mhm.
provide, like our why and our motive, and those things. So thanks for sharing that. So in your shared experience, what advice would you give to entrepreneurs, business founders who are struggling to let go, to trust their
Mm,
teams, and to
mhm.
take on the responsibility without compromising their vision?
That's so good.
Mm-hmm.
I would say do it anyway. And then the other question I always ask is what's the alternative, right? I am stubborn. I am stubborn, Jill. I am not going to work as hard as I am in creating this
Mm-hmm.
company and doing all the blood, sweat, and tears that we put into this to not reap the benefits of it. Does that make sense? Like,
Yeah,
I'm not willing to
absolutely.
do this without having work-life harmony, without having the opportunity to take vacations and not answer my emails and right, not being so handcuffed to the job. So
Yeah.
that's the question I'm always asking is like, so if somebody's very reluctant to delegate and they're worried about handing things off, I get that. I really do. And trusting team members. But what's your alternative? You're just going to do
Mm,
it yourself forever? Are
right.
you, and what's your alternative if you have a goal of growth and
Mm-hmm.
impacting your purpose and your passion to more people and more products or whatever it is that you do? Okay, great. Are you going to be able to do that all by yourself? No, right? So
Right.
it's kind of a harsh like what's your alternative question? Um,
Mm-hmm.
but it is. I always ask myself like, okay, I don't want to delegate this out, and it is a little scary. I'd like to have that white knuckle tight grip over this, but
Right.
I'm going to be spread too thin and I'm not going to be able to come home and love my family and
Yeah.
grow into serving more people, which is our purpose, right?
Yeah.
So hopefully that's helpful. It's a little straightforward, but
I mean, that's huge. Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, that's just it. Because of this belief, I think that oftentimes we have to do it all, or we got it to
hmm
where it is, and that is
yeah,
going to be what gets things to the next level, and it can't be more opposite. And
mhm,
so
yeah,
that recognition and caring for our whole selves and what
hmm
truly matters in our lives outside of running a business
Mhm.
is the first step. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
To learn more about Becky Lauridsen and IOMI's guilt free self care approach, or to explore their innovative mental wellness program for your workplace, visit iominow.com. That's IOMENOW.com. Becky, thank you so much for being
Thank
here. You are a complete joy and a wealth of knowledge in
you.
mental health. I just appreciate you so much.
I appreciate what you do, and it's always so incredible to be in your space, even if it's virtual here. But I'm cheering you on, and I love what
Oh,
you're doing. So
likewise.
thank you for the invitation and spending time with me.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you so much to our guests for listening today, and everybody enjoy the rest of your day.